The midnight bus. I never thought I would end up on that bus. It was just another late night after work, the kind where everything feels dull and monotonous. My train had been delayed for hours due to some mechanical issue, and by the time it finally arrived, I was exhausted. But when I stepped off at my usual stop, something felt wrong. The streets were eerily quiet. Not even the hum of distant traffic broke the silence. That's when I saw it, a bus idling under the flickering streetlight. Its headlights glowed faintly yellow, casting long shadows across the pavement. The sign above read "Midnight Route," though I didn't recognize the number or destination. Still, desperation got the better of me. I climbed aboard without thinking twice. The interior smelled like damp wood and rusted metal. Rows of cracked vinyl seats stretched toward the back, most empty except for a few passengers scattered throughout. None looked up as I walked down the aisle. They sat motionless, staring straight ahead with hollow eyes. Their faces seemed pale, almost translucent, like they hadn't seen sunlight in years. "Where does this go?" I asked the driver, leaning forward cautiously. He didn't respond. His gloved hands gripped the wheel tightly, his face obscured by the brim of his hat. Something about him made my skin crawl, but I shook it off and took a seat near the front. As the bus lurched forward, I noticed something odd. There were no landmarks outside the window, just endless stretches of darkness dotted with twisted trees. No buildings, no streetlights, nothing familiar. That's when the fear began to creep in. Minutes passed, though it felt longer. The air inside the bus grew colder, biting at my skin despite the thin jacket I wore. I turned to look at the other passengers, hoping someone might offer reassurance, or at least acknowledge my presence. Instead, their expressions remained blank, unchanging. One man caught my attention. He sat 2 rows behind me, wearing a tattered suit that hung loosely on his gaunt frame. His lips moved silently, mouthing words I couldn't hear. When our eyes met briefly, I shuddered. His gaze wasn't human. It was empty, devoid of life, yet filled with an unsettling intensity. A woman across from him clutched a small doll close to her chest. Its porcelain face gleamed unnaturally bright in the dim light, and its glassy eyes seemed to follow me wherever I looked. Every so often, she rocked gently back and forth, whispering softly to herself. None of them spoke aloud, yet I could feel their presence pressing down on me, suffocating. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the creak of the bus's suspension and the faint hiss of the engine. I tried to focus on anything else, the rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows, the faint reflection of my own face, but unease gnawed at me relentlessly. "What is this place?" I muttered under my breath, half expecting someone to answer. No one did. About 20 minutes into the ride, the bus slowed abruptly. We came to a stop beside what appeared to be an abandoned gas station. Faded signs swayed in the wind, and weeds sprouted through cracked asphalt. Nothing moved except the occasional flutter of leaves. The doors hissed open, and the driver called out in a gravelly voice, "End of the line." His tone sent chills down my spine. End of the line? This couldn't possibly be my stop. I hadn't told him where I wanted to go. Before I could protest, several passengers stood up and shuffled off the bus without hesitation. Among them was the man in the tattered suit and the woman with the doll. I hesitated, gripping the edge of my seat. "Wait," I said aloud, though no one acknowledged me. As the last passenger stepped off, the doors slammed shut and the bus lurched forward again. Panic bubbled within me. Where were we going now? Why hadn't anyone explained anything? Then, from somewhere behind me, a raspy voice whispered, "You shouldn't have gotten on." I whipped around, heart pounding. A frail old woman sat directly behind me, her wrinkled face inches from mine. She hadn't been there before, I was certain of it. Her cloudy eyes bore into mine, and her lips curled into a sinister grin. "This isn't your world anymore," she croaked. "You'll see soon enough." Before I could respond, she leaned back and dissolved into shadow, leaving me alone once more. My breath hitched, and I realized I was trembling. What had I gotten myself into? For what felt like hours, the bus continued its journey through the desolate landscape. The scenery outside remained unchanged, endless darkness punctuated by gnarled trees and patches of fog. Each passing minute tightened the knot of dread in my stomach. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, I addressed the driver. "Hey," my voice cracked, betraying my fear. "Where are you taking me?" He didn't turn around, but his shoulders stiffened slightly. After a pause, he replied in a low, guttural tone, "To where you belong." His words chilled me to the bone. "What do you mean?" "I need to get home." "You left home the moment you boarded," he said flatly. "There's no turning back now." I opened my mouth to argue, but no sound came out. Fear paralyzed me, rooting me to my seat. For the first time, I noticed the faint outline of chains wrapped around his wrists, glinting dully in the dim light. Was he a prisoner too? Or something worse? Desperate for distraction, I stared out the window, searching for anything familiar. But instead of seeing my own reflection, I glimpsed something horrifying. Standing beside me, or rather, standing where I should have been, was a figure cloaked in black. Its face was obscured by a hood, but its skeletal fingers pressed against the glass, leaving streaks of frost behind. I recoiled instinctively, nearly falling out of my seat. When I glanced back at the window, the figure was gone. Had I imagined it? My pulse raced as I scanned the dark expanse beyond the glass. Nothing stirred, yet the sensation of being watched lingered, heavy and suffocating. As the bus trundled onward, a soft sobbing noise echoed through the cabin. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, but then I realized it originated closer, right behind me. Turning slowly, I spotted a young girl huddled in the corner of the bus. She couldn't have been older than 8, her blonde hair matted and dirty. Her wide, tear-filled eyes locked onto mine. "Help me," she whimpered, clutching a tattered teddy bear to her chest. "I want to go home." My throat tightened. "Where's your mom?" "Your dad?" She shook her head violently. "They're gone. Everyone's gone." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Except him." "Who?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "The driver," she murmured. "He takes us away." Before I could ask more, the bus jolted violently, throwing me forward. When I regained my footing, the girl was gone. The bus came to another sudden stop, jolting me awake. I hadn't realized I'd dozed off, but judging by the stiffness in my neck and the cold sweat dripping down my back, it wasn't restful sleep. Outside the window, the landscape had shifted again, this time into something even more surreal. Jagged cliffs loomed overhead, their jagged edges silhouetted against a blood-red sky. Below them stretched an endless expanse of black water that shimmered unnaturally, as if alive. The driver stood abruptly, his movements jerky and unnatural. For the first time since boarding, he turned to face me, or at least, I thought he did. What I saw made bile rise in my throat. Beneath the brim of his hat, his face was featureless, a smooth, pale void interrupted only by 2 glowing red slits where eyes should have been. His mouth stretched impossibly wide across his head, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You've seen too much," he rasped, stepping closer. "But don't worry. You'll forget soon enough." "Forget what?" I stammered, scrambling backward until my spine hit the seat behind me. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out with long, spindly fingers tipped with razor-sharp nails. I recoiled instinctively, pressing myself further into the corner. That's when I noticed something horrifying. The other passengers were gone. Every single one of them had vanished without a sound. "Where is everyone?" I demanded, though my voice cracked under the weight of fear. "They're waiting for you," he said simply, tilting his head in a way that wasn't human. "Just like you'll wait for the next ones." Before I could react, the bus plunged forward once more, hurtling toward the edge of the cliff. I screamed, bracing myself for impact, but instead of crashing, we soared into the air, suspended over the churning black waters below. We landed with a sickening splash, sinking beneath the surface of the dark lake. Panic surged through me as icy water flooded the cabin, soaking my clothes and weighing me down. But strangely, I didn't drown. Instead, the liquid seemed to solidify around me, holding me upright as if encased in gelatinous glass. Through the murky depths, shapes began to emerge, shadowy figures floating aimlessly, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Some clawed feebly at the invisible barrier separating us. Others simply stared blankly ahead, their hollow eyes accusing. Suddenly, the bus dissolved around me, leaving me standing knee-deep in the viscous substance. The driver appeared before me, now fully transformed into a monstrous figure twice my height. His elongated limbs ended in talons, and his featureless face radiated malice. Yet somehow, I found the courage to speak. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound defiant. He leaned down, his hot breath reeking of decay. "You took passage on my vessel. Now you owe me your soul. I didn't ask for this." I protested, backing away. "I just wanted to go home." "And now you will," he sneered. But not the way you remember it. With a flick of his wrist, the world around me warped. The lake vanished, replaced by a desolate wasteland bathed in perpetual twilight. In the distance, I saw the outline of a crumbling city, its buildings leaning precariously as if ready to collapse. Figures shuffled through the streets, people who looked eerily familiar. "Welcome to eternity," the driver whispered, his laughter echoing in my ears as he faded into nothingness. I wandered the ruined streets, searching for answers, or at least some semblance of hope. The air was thick with despair, carrying whispers that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere all at once. They spoke of regret, loss, and unfinished business, each voice overlapping until they formed a cacophony of anguish. The people here avoided eye contact, shuffling past me like ghosts tethered to the earth. When I tried to speak to them, they either ignored me or muttered cryptic warnings. "Don't look back. It always finds you. There's no escape." Hours, or maybe days, passed. Time had no meaning in this place. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but food was nowhere to be found. Sleep eluded me, haunted by visions of the driver's grotesque grin and the endless cries of the damned. With every step, I grew weaker, my body succumbing to exhaustion and despair. Then, one night, I stumbled upon a mirror-like pool nestled among the ruins. Its surface rippled gently, reflecting not my own face, but scenes from my past. Happy memories played out before me, birthdays, holidays, moments shared with loved ones. But as I watched, the images twisted into nightmares. Faces contorted in agony, laughter turned to screams, joy replaced by sorrow. A hand gripped my shoulder, startling me. Whirling around, I came face to face with the little girl from the bus. Her expression was grim, her once innocent eyes now pools of darkness. "You can leave," she whispered, "but only if you take someone else's place." Her words echoed in my mind, taunting me with their cruel simplicity. Leave? After everything I'd endured, could I really abandon this hellish realm? And yet, the thought of freedom tempted me beyond reason. I hesitated, torn between guilt and desperation. How? I asked finally, my voice barely audible. She pointed to the pool. Find someone willing to trade places. Convince them to take your spot. Once they agree, touch the water together. Without another word, she vanished, leaving me alone with the unbearable decision. Who could I possibly ask? Surely no one would willingly condemn themselves to such torment. Then it hit me. I knew exactly who to approach. Back in the city, I sought out a man who resembled me in age and build. He sat slumped against a crumbling wall, his gaze vacant. Desperation fueled my plea. Please, I begged, dropping to my knees. Take my place. I'll make sure your family knows you're gone. I'll give them closure. At first, he resisted, shaking his head mutely. But as I continued to beg, his resolve crumbled. Tears streamed down his face as he nodded reluctantly. Together, we returned to the pool. As instructed, I placed my hand on the water alongside his. A surge of energy coursed through me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the driver's face reflected in the ripples, his grin wider than ever. The man beside me let out a strangled cry, collapsing to the ground as the darkness consumed him. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt light, free. I woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat, the morning sun streaming through the window. It had all been a dream, or so I thought. Later that day, while watching the news, I saw a report about a missing person matching the description of the man I had left behind. His family tearfully pleaded for information, unaware of the bargain I'd struck. As the camera panned to his photo, I froze. Behind him, faint but unmistakable, stood the driver, his featureless face staring directly at me. The screen went black, and then softly, from somewhere nearby, I heard his voice. Thank you for your sacrifice. I haven't left my house since. Shadows linger longer than they should, and mirrors reflect things that shouldn't exist. Sometimes, late at night, I hear the distant rumble of a bus engine and the faint whisper of my name.